But the two men sitting nearby did not even bother to look away. Instead, they kept staring at her.
Ako naman maging baby mo.
Just then, Ross appeared. He deliberately revealed the gun strapped to his waist, and the two men immediately fell silent in fear. Ross treated the young woman with great respect. At first, he did not sit right next to her. However, as more and more passengers got on, the two of them eventually had to sit beside each other.
Makigayak na lang po ng mga pamasahe nyo, maniningil na po ako.
A while later, the ticket inspector came around to collect the fares.
Ilan po? Dalawa to?
The young woman did not have a single penny on her. Terrified, she had no choice but to beg Ross for help.
Baka pwede mo naman kami tulungan. Kailangan ko lang ho talagang makarating ng Nueva Segovia.
Without asking any questions, Ross immediately bought 2 tickets for her. The young woman was deeply grateful, but to Ross, it was only a small favor. What he was truly curious about was her story. Realizing that Ross was a kind man, the young woman began telling him about her past. Her name was Linus. When she was only 5 years old, both of her parents passed away, so she and her older brother were sent to live with their aunt. However, because of money, their aunt sold her brother away and kept only Linus with her. As the years passed, Linus grew into a beautiful young woman, and her uncle began to have evil intentions toward her. He threatened Linus with a knife. However, her aunt not only refused to believe her, but also beat her badly. She then sent Linus away to work in another province.
Lynette, cellphone mo, may tumatawag.
One day, she unexpectedly received news that her older brother had returned. Not long afterward, he came to see her at her workplace. Overwhelmed with emotion, the two siblings threw their arms around each other. Her brother then took Linus home with him. By that time, he was already married. Linus's sister-in-law was very beautiful and treated her with great kindness. Linus felt as though she finally had a happy family of her own. However, when night came, she could not feel happy at all. Linus's room and her brother's bedroom were separated by only a thin wooden board. Every night, she could hear the couple's intimate sounds. At first, Linus only listened in secret. Later, she even climbed up to spy on them. The story made Ross feel a little awkward, so he quickly interrupted her.
Pwede ba ikwento mo sa akin yung love story niyo ng mister mo? Yun ang gusto ko malaman eh.
Ang kuya ko. Siya ang mister ko at ang nakabuntis sa akin.
Ross froze. He could not believe that the couple embracing so passionately in her story were not husband and wife. Because her sister-in-law was often away on business, Linus gradually developed feelings for her brother, Toto. Their forbidden relationship continued until Linus became pregnant.
Lynette?
Afraid that the truth would be discovered, Toto took Linus back to their hometown so she could safely go through her pregnancy. He then returned to work. But to Linus's despair, Toto never came back. Even when she gave birth, she had to endure everything alone. At this point in the story, Linus could no longer hold back her tears. Seeing her cry, Ross quickly comforted her and changed the subject to ease the tension. He began introducing himself.
Ako nga pala si Rodolfo Padilla Jr.
However, the moment Linus heard the word sailor, her expression immediately darkened. It turned out that when she first left her hometown, she had boarded a ship. Because she had no money for a ticket, she was forced to hide inside the ship. Even so, Linus was eventually discovered. The crew members took her to an office. Linus had no idea that this place would become a living hell.
Wala lang po talaga akong pera. Nasa Nueva Segovia lang po kasi yung mister ko.
After learning about her difficult situation, the crew members did not help her. Instead, they took advantage of her.
Kasi sir, may amoy.
Huwag ka mag-alala. Sige na. Sige na.
Linus was completely desperate, but she had no way to fight back. Afterward, the crew allowed her to take a shower, gave her enough food to eat, and arranged a temporary place for her to rest on the ship. There, Linus met an elderly woman. While they were talking, Linus learned that the woman often suffered from back pain. Since Linus had previously learned how to give massages, she offered to massage the woman's back.
Halin ini sa langis ng niyog. Halamang gamot.
Oo.
While doing so, she happened to notice several small bottles of medicine among the woman's belongings and curiously asked what they were. The elderly woman immediately became extremely cautious. She took Linus somewhere private before finally revealing the truth. These aren't medicines. They're poisons made from a type of plant.
Itong mga butong ito ay lason.
After their conversation, the two returned to the cabin to rest. But then the crew members appeared again. They told Linus that the captain wanted to see her. With no other choice, Linus handed the baby to the elderly woman and asked her to look after the child. On this ship, women like Linus did not have to pay for their tickets with money. The price they were forced to pay was far more painful and cruel.
Sige, pasok ka. Gusto ko makilala ni Kapitan.
Linus was then locked inside the captain's room. The captain was a vile man. The moment he saw her, his intentions became obvious. Hearing all this, Ross could hardly believe his ears. What had happened to Linus on the ship made him furious. Ross offered to help her report everything to the police, but Linus immediately refused. She did not explain why, and Ross was afraid of upsetting her, so he did not ask any more questions. In reality, before Linus left the ship, everyone who had hurt her had already paid the price. After returning to the cabin, Linus asked the elderly woman for some of the poison. She crushed it into powder and secretly mixed it into the crew's alcohol. When the ship finally reached the port, Linus took advantage of the chaos, grabbed the baby, and escaped. Just then, the ticket inspector announced that there was heavy rain ahead and the bus could not continue its journey. All the passengers would have to spend the night at a rest stop and continue traveling the next morning. When they arrived at the stop, Ross bought Linus a bowl of chicken soup to help her produce more milk for the baby. He even bought her a mobile phone. Linus was extremely grateful.
Oh, salamat ah. Ang bait-bait mo sa akin.
However, it was at that moment that Ross slowly began to reveal his true intentions.
Gusto mo, samahan mo na ako sa kwarto.
What he wanted was more than just a thank you. Linus was shocked, but she soon understood that nothing in this world was truly free. She could have refused him, but in the end, she still followed Ross into the room. As soon as they put their belongings down, Ross locked the door and said with a smile,
Huwag ka matatakot sa akin, ha? Hindi ako tulad na ibang lalaki. Mabait ako.
Afterward, Linus bluntly told him that she had known what he wanted from the beginning. Ross remained silent because everything she said was true. After Linus fell asleep, Ross secretly answered a phone call.
Hello, mahal. Uuwi na naman ako mamaya eh. At I love you, ha?
The caller was his wife. Afraid that she might become suspicious, Ross immediately left the room. When Linus woke up the next morning, she realized that Ross had already gone. She did not seem surprised. She simply picked up the baby and continued her journey. However, by the time Ross returned home, everything had completely changed. A television news report identified Linus as a wanted kidnapper. The baby she had been carrying was not her biological child at all. She had stolen the child from a hospital. The police also believed that Linus had committed the crime with an accomplice, and that accomplice was Ross. Meanwhile, as soon as Linus arrived at her brother's house, the police arrested her. Ross was still confused when his furious wife threw his phone at him. It turned out that Linus had only been pretending to sleep the night before. After Ross left, she used the two mobile phones to send romantic messages back and forth between them. In this way, she created evidence suggesting that Ross was having an affair with her and had worked with her to carry out the kidnapping. After being taken into custody, Linus placed all the blame on Ross. She claimed that Ross had forced and manipulated her into kidnapping the baby. Realizing that he had fallen into a carefully planned trap, Ross refused to accept his fate. However, before he could get away, Ross was shot and killed by the police. Through this film, we are shown the terrifying dark side of society, where exploitation, greed, and desire can drive people into tragedy. At the same time, the story reminds us not to lose our conscience because of a moment of selfish desire. Because whenever someone does something wrong, sooner or later, they will have to pay for their own actions. Thank you for watching until the end. Goodbye, and I'll see you again in the next video.